Daddy and yours. Thanks for joining me as always. Everything Pats, a New England Patriots podcast. Appreciate every single one of you. The training camp mailbag coming up in a little bit. But first, want to get into Drake Maye because Drake Maye responded to an up and down practice yesterday by being better today. Let's look at some of these notes from camp. Earlier today, Evan Lazar posted, strong day for Maye. Completions to Austin Hooper, Stefon Diggs, and Kyle Williams stood out. Andrew Callahan, Maye was 10 for 13. He had 3 sacks, 2 completions of 10-plus yards. More on that in a minute. Stefon Diggs had a team-high 3 catches from Maye and 11 on 11s. The play of the day was a 40-plus yard touchdown throw from Maye to Kyle Williams. About that Kyle Williams touchdown, Lazar posted, boom, Drake Maye throws an absolute dime to Kyle Williams on a go ball for a long touchdown, pretty throw and catch. Mike Giardi posted a most excellent fade from Maye to Kyle Williams for a score. As one guy said, quote, that's the definition of throwing a guy open, unquote. Now, I want to throw some context out there before we get too bananas about Drake Maye's day. Yesterday was red zone. And so when you talk about red zone offense, you talk about low red zone offense, it's tougher to deal with. Went into that on Locked On Patriots. Today, not a ton downfield. As Callahan posted, only 2 of these completions, the 2 of the 10 completions by Maye, were for 10 yards or more. So 10-plus yards on 2 of the completions. The other 8, mostly underneath throws, but hitting the open man. And so I don't want to necessarily look at this in a vacuum. I don't want to look at this and say, oh, well, Maye bounced back today, so man, oh man, he's been awesome, unbelievable camp. Just like I didn't look at yesterday's up and down performance and say, oh my God, he stinks. We have to look at the context. We've got to understand the big picture. And the big picture is this. I am excited by Drake Maye's camp so far. We are 1 week in, and I am excited by what I'm reading. I'm excited by what I've been hearing. And that excitement is for a number of reasons. Let's begin with the obvious. Maye doesn't have an interception. He has not thrown a single interception 1 week into practice. And not only has he avoided any interceptions, he hasn't thrown a pick, even though he's been facing pressure. Now, of course, there's good and bad to that. Maye is not throwing interceptions, but Maye is facing pressure. But even though he's getting some pressure, he's not allowing that pressure to push him into forcing a throw and making a mistake. The fact that Maye has 0 interceptions 1 solid week into camp is no doubt unequivocally a step in the right direction. Before the camp began, during the offseason, we discussed Drake Maye. We talked about what he needs to improve on. And one of the biggest things we talked about was the turnover-worthy plays. The amount of turnovers that Maye had in 2024. Yeah, he didn't have great circumstances around him. We all understand that. But there were too many plays that he would try to make and force something. And because of that, it led to a turnover. Well, you look at this camp so far, 1 week in, Maye's taking care of the football. There's been some snap exchange issues, whether it was Garrett Bradbury or, of course, Jared Wilson. Some of that could be on the center. Some of that could be on the quarterback. Some of it could be on the heat and humidity, whatever's going on. But as far as Maye throwing the football into harm's way, there hasn't been a lot of that during this camp. And that is absolutely a great step in the right direction for Maye. Another reason why I'm excited by what I'm reading regarding Maye's camp. He responds to the downs. When he has a down stretch, and you're going to have down stretches. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's going to go out there and light camp on fire from beginning to end and just be absolutely perfect, complete 95% of the passes, throw no interceptions, and, the guy can do no wrong. I don't think we should expect that from anybody. However, what we want to see is when you have that down stretch, when you can't find your accuracy, like yesterday, how do you respond? And that's what's big about today. Some of it, of course, is the offense that was run. But Maye was missing some of these passes underneath to open guys during yesterday's practice. So what you want to see is the response. What you want to see is the bounce back. And Maye bounced back today. That's what I love. I love this idea of, man, I wasn't as good as I should have been yesterday. I'm going to put that behind me. And even in the same practice yesterday, Maye showed some of that bounce back. Started very, very slow, ended much better. So when you have that kind of response, that's the good stuff, because that tells us the quarterback is still super confident. It tells us that the quarterback has no issue facing adversity, understanding that he's going to mess up from time to time. But how does he channel that? How does he channel that energy? Does it continue to be a negative, or does he find a way to improve? Does he find a way to bounce back? And that's what we've seen through the first week of camp. And that's a great thing. Seemingly, there's no issues with the operation. Aside from the 2 or 3 snap issues, the exchanges between center and quarterback we just talked about, the communication feels like it's pretty good. Seems like receivers, quarterback on the same page. Seems like Maye has full control of this offense, an understanding of this offense. Feels like he has control of the team. And that was a question. 4 offensive coordinators in 4 years for Maye. New system, Josh McDaniels, not super easy. We've discussed it ad nauseum. But there haven't been any, oh my goodness, man, types of practices, right? There haven't been any of those practices where we see people talking and writing about Drake Maye looked like he was completely lost. Now, yesterday, again, in the red zone, there was some indecisiveness, but that kind of comes with the territory. So those are the 3 big things for me. Why I'm excited for Maye, what we've seen through week 1. He hasn't thrown a single interception. He has shown that he can bounce back. And there seems to be no communication issues, a full understanding of the offense, and he seems like he's in control, which is critical at this juncture of the calendar when you're trying to learn the new system. So through week 1 of camp, I'd say Maye absolutely has a passing grade. The grade is going to change per person. Some might have a B, some might have a B+. But let's just get this straight. There's nothing out there. I have seen nothing. I have heard nothing. I have read nothing that tells us that Maye is a mess or he's failing during this camp so far. Not even close. He is without a shadow of a doubt passing the test. Without a shadow of a doubt. All right. Meanwhile, an NFL insider praised Maye this week. I want to get to that. That's coming up. But don't forget, help a brother out. Click that thumbs up. The more likes means more eyeballs. Help us with the algorithm. I've been saying that since day 1. So don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. How do you feel about Drake Maye's week 1 progress in camp? Are you as excited as I am? Do you feel as good about him so far as I do? So throw a comment in and also subscribe. Looking for 7,000 subscribers. So like, comment, subscribe. Spotify, Apple Pods, my friends over there. Thanks for following. Thanks for rating. And thanks for reviewing. All right, before I get to this NFL insider who is pumping the tires of Maye, let me get to a super chat. Our guy Charlie sent a $10 super chat. Ain't no party like a Drake Maye party because a Drake Maye party don't stop. Love all the camp coverage, Nick. I appreciate you, Charlie. I appreciate the super chat. I appreciate the flavor to the super chat. Man, oh man, can't say enough to everybody who has supported this program, especially all of you from day 1. Charlie, I don't know if it was day 1, but it feels like it was at least day 2. So yes, ain't no party like a Drake Maye party because a Drake Maye party don't stop. Indeed. Indeed. And speaking of a Drake Maye party, Pete Schrager, now of ESPN, was on the Pat McAfee show. And here's what he said, quote, "When you get year 2 leaps, it means they spent the offseason working. The juice out of Patriots camp right now about Drake Maye is very real. Don't be shocked if we see a year 2 giant leap from Drake Maye," unquote. Now, this could just be blowing smoke. This could be, as I said a moment ago, just pumping the tires. But Schrager's a pretty well-connected guy. I mean, he's taking selfies in Indy during the draft combine with like Andy Reid having a steak, whatever he's doing. Schrager's a pretty connected guy. And so if Schrager is hearing that Drake Maye is doing as well as we think he's doing, and Schrager's talking about a giant leap in year 2, it leads me to believe that the people in the facility, the people behind closed doors, are very, very happy with what they've seen and heard from Drake Maye. That tells me the coaching staff is optimistic about Maye's season. It tells me that the coaching staff feels like he put in the work. He understands the system. His mind is in the right place. He's doing the right things. Because I don't think Schrager's going to go out there and talk about giant leaps in year 2 if he's not getting really good information about Maye and what he's doing. Now, of course, with all of this said, the true tests are coming up. The true tests will be the joint practices. Tomorrow, the Patriots have a walkthrough. Not much happening. We saw last Friday a walkthrough. Not much happens. So you're not going to gain a lot from tomorrow's practice. Friday, you have the in-stadium scrimmage for season ticket holders. You're not going to get a whole heck of a lot out of that. And then the Patriots have Saturday and Sunday off, so they have the entire weekend. So it's been a pretty tough week. You had back-to-back padded practices. Today, you're in the shorts and the shells. And tomorrow, you got the walkthrough, then the scrimmage, and then the weekend off. And I think the staff is doing this because you want a little bit of a breather before you get to next week. I can only imagine that the Patriots staff is going to ramp things up. The intensity, the urgency, everything is going to be ramped up next week. Starting on Monday, I think the staff is going to get this team as ready as possible for that joint practice. And you might see some more physicality. You might see some more, again, urgency and violence. And they're going to ramp things up next week to get ready for Washington. And then you've got the joint practice with Washington. You have the preseason game with Washington. And then the following week, you have the joint practice with Minnesota. And that's what we're talking about. To me, that joint practice against Minnesota is really the last shot that we have to evaluate where the team truly is before they kick it off. Before they kick off for a game that matters. That joint practice against Minnesota is the most crucial part of this camp. And so you've been through the first week. Things will slow down over the next few days because then they're going to ramp up for back-to-back intense, important weeks. And then we'll have a better feel. Those are the true tests. Get through the Washington joint practice. Get through the Vikings joint practice. Maye not throwing picks during practice is a fantastic thing. Because and I know, if Maye threw 5 or 6 picks in the first week of camp, you know what the narrative would be. You know what certain people would be saying. You know it and I know it. And some of it would be justified. People would be freaking out if Maye had 3 picks in a practice. They'd be losing their mind. Remember what happened early? Was it OTAs? I think it was OTAs. Like the first OTA practice or whatever, Maye threw a couple picks and people were going nuts. Oh my God, he doesn't know the system. Take a deep breath. We said it back then. Take a deep breath. So if he threw a handful of picks in this first week, people would be yelling from the mountaintops that there's a problem with Drake Maye. So I do give him credit. Absolutely. And I'm very happy he has not thrown a single interception in the first week of camp. But it means more if he gets through that Washington joint practice without throwing a pick. It means more if he gets through that Minnesota joint practice without throwing a pick. Now, is it reasonable to expect him not to turn the ball over once via interception during camp? Of course not. He's going to do it. But if he's taking care of the football in those joint practices, it means just that much more than taking care of the football during your own training camp. And I think when Pete Schrager comes out and says he wouldn't be shocked, don't be surprised by a giant leap in year 2 for Maye, there's a few things at work here. Number one, the Stefon Diggs chemistry is there. And I don't know if it was the workout they had in North Carolina. I don't know if they've been, spending time together playing video games. I don't know what's going on. But really, the first time that Diggs stepped on the field, Drake Maye had immediate chemistry with him. And that's important because he's going to be your guy. So the chemistry is happening quickly. Pop Douglas has looked great in camp. Kayshon Boutte had a pretty good 24, all things considered. Kyle Williams is showing some flashes. So, some of these receivers are doing some good work. And there's absolutely nothing, and I mean nothing, there's absolutely nothing out there that tells us that Drake Maye is treading water, that he's stuck in neutral. And there is certainly nothing telling us that Maye is suffering from some kind of training camp regression from last year. That's not happening. Now, you don't need a giant leap. You don't need a giant leap. We would all love a giant leap. Don't get me wrong. If there's a giant leap, I'll accept the giant leap. We're fans of giant leaps. But we don't necessarily need the giant leap. We just need Maye to get better. We need Maye to take that step forward. The giant leap can come in year 3 if need be. But so far, so good. No signs of regression, no signs of confusion, no signs of treading water, full speed ahead. And I think we should all be pretty happy by Drake Maye's first week at camp. All right, let's get to the mailbag. Number of good questions today. Let's start with Decho Manev. If there's one roster spot left, are you choosing tight end 3, Westover, Dupree, now that Lampy is out, or Larison/Chisholm if one or both are on the bubble? Yeah, tough break for Brock Lampy. He is out. He's done for the year, IR. He was actually getting some snaps with the first team, and I think he had a decent shot to make this roster. I'm not sure which podcast it was. I've done a few, but somebody was talking about UDFAs that could make the team. It might have been on my Patreon, and I mentioned Lampy as a possibility, and he was out there with the ones. And I would not be surprised if the Patriots actually replace Lampy with another fullback if they could find a guy that they like. I wouldn't be surprised by that. But to me, it would be more likely, if we're talking about one roster spot and we're talking about replacing Lampy, it's more likely that would be tight end 3 just because of the size of the player, the blocking ability and the blocking role that player would take on. As far as Larison and Chisholm, Chisholm hasn't done much since OTAs. I don't think he did a whole heck of a lot towards the end of minicamp either. He's kind of faded to the background. Now, today, he made a couple of plays, but he's not getting a lot of reps. He's not getting really any reps with the ones. So right now, it looks like Chisholm, if you were a betting man, he's headed to the practice squad if he wants to go to the Patriots practice squad. It looks like that's what's going to happen. Again, there's more time left to camp. But right now, we're talking right now, it seems like Chisholm is more likely to find his tuk-tuk on the practice squad than on the team, which would leave me with Larison. And so if it's not a tight end, I would lean Larison right now. And you also have to look at the numbers game. I mean, you just have a flock of wide receivers right now. Running back, not so much. So that's how I would look at that particular breakdown. Thank you, Decho. Connie Football, what happened to Carlton Davis? Yeah, what happened to Carlton Davis? Inquiring minds would love to know. What is going on with Carlton Davis? Again, he was not at practice today. He's missed a slew of practices now. I think the last time we saw him was during the Friday walkthrough, and it's a walkthrough, so that means pretty much nothing. He passed his physical. We don't know if there's an injury. We have to imagine that there's some kind of injury. How significant is the injury? We don't really know. But Mike Vrabel was asked about Carlton Davis today, and here's what he said, quote, "There's a plan. Just making sure he's ready to go. It's a long season, veteran player. There will be guys that have different plans. Maybe Morgan Moses. He talked about Harold Landry taking out the day off today, and Landry did take the day off today. Vrabel continued trying to put this thing together and make sure that everybody that needs to get the work, evaluation reasons, sometimes it's health related, try to give everyone what they need for the season." So Vrabel made it sound like at least part of this whole Carlton Davis absence has to do with a plan. But here's where I kind of draw the line of demarcation. Moses and Landry have been out there. Moses left practice early yesterday. Don't know if he was sick, but he was back today, and he pretty much put in a full practice. So they have a plan for Morgan Moses, and Moses hasn't missed a practice, and he certainly hasn't missed multiple practices consecutively. Harold Landry missed today's practice, but he's been practicing every day. So that's the difference between Moses, Landry, and Davis. I understand a plan. I don't think this is load management, so to speak, with Carlton Davis, because he would have been out there for at least one of the padded practices. He hasn't been out there since Friday, the walkthrough. So, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 4 straight practices now. He missed the practice before the walkthrough. So 5 of the last, 6 practices, Carlton Davis has been persona non grata. That's much different than Morgan Moses. It's much different than Harold Landry. So I think Vrabel's playing some games here. I think he's wrapping Davis in with other veterans to say, oh, well, everybody has a plan, and, it's what's best for everybody. It certainly feels like something is ailing Carlton Davis. I don't know if it's serious. Like I said, not sure if it's significant. But I can guarantee you Carlton Davis would have been on that football field at least once, if not twice, over the past 3 or 4 days if he was not dealing with something. On the silver lining side, I would say that, there doesn't seem to be any urgency about bringing someone from the outside in. So that would lead you to believe that they're not necessarily concerned long-term for Davis. What I'm interested in, I wouldn't put it past Vrabel, by the way, if Davis is out there tomorrow. Again, because it's a walkthrough. Would not be surprised whatsoever if Davis pops up during the walkthrough like he did last week. But what we really need to pay attention to is I went over the schedule a few minutes ago, right? So you're going to have a very kind of slow-paced end of the week, and then you're going to have the weekend off. If Carlton Davis isn't back on the field by next Monday, my poop detectors pop. Those poop detectors pop straight up. If Davis is not on the field by Monday, then I think you're dealing with something here. Because he's missed all of these practices. He's going to have what results in like a full week plus off, full weekend off. If he ain't out there by Monday, this is not a load management thing. And I don't think it is. He could be out there on Monday, but still had to deal with something over the last week or so. But to me, it's rather obvious he's going through something, whatever that something is. I said it 0-1. Would you rather solidify center or pair Wilson with Campbell and lock down the left side for the next 10 years? All right, I understand what happened at practice today. We'll touch on that in a minute. If you were asking me, right, I got this question last night. I would have slotted Jared Wilson in at center, and I would have put him at center because when you look at the roster, I just feel like there's more options that you have at guard. You've got Strange, you've got you've got now Wallace, you've got a couple of other guys that you can throw out there. I just feel like there's more depth. It might not be great depth, but I just feel like there's more depth at the guard position than there is at the center position. So I would have slid Wilson over to center. That's what I would have done. The quarterback center relationship's important. I would have said it and forget it, and Wilson would have been my starting center. But obviously, that's not happening. It's not happening because at today's practice, Jared Wilson was your starting left guard. He was your starting left guard yesterday. But with the Bradbury injury, and Bradbury was nowhere to be found today, Alec Lindstrom was brought in. He was at practice today, former center at Boston College. So it seems like Bradbury is certainly dealing with something because you don't bring in another center unless you think Bradbury is going to be out for some period of time. So when I look at this, I would have slid Wilson to center because I think you have less depth. And now you got Ben Brown and Cole Strange at center, which doesn't make me too confident. But, I mean, in the big picture, the best thing about this is Wilson looks like a starter. Looks like he's going to start. He's only 22 years old, and he's done very, very well. He's done very well during this camp so far. I'll have many more thoughts on the Jared Wilson decision, putting him at guard. I'll have many more thoughts on Locked On Patriots. That podcast will be released a little bit later tonight. All right, let's jump to the next one. Brady Boy, when should we start to get concerned about the fumbled snaps in practice by Maye? It might not matter. Again, I don't know if this is on Maye. I don't know if it was on Wilson. I don't know if it was on Bradbury. I don't know if it was on all three guys. I don't know. I don't know. And, maybe these exchanges played a role in the coaching staff deciding to put Wilson at guard because they said, there's a lot on the plate for the rookie. He's had a couple of exchange issues with Maye. We don't want that to start building. We think he's going to be a good enough guard, so let's just slide him left guard. Could have played a role, could have played a part. But Bradbury, if healthy, he's a veteran. He hasn't had any issues from what I know snapping the football. Ben Brown should be okay. I know he had one or two of those snaps last year, but I believe at least one, if not both, actually it was an equipment malfunction or whatever the heck happened. So I'm not overly worried about Ben Brown. Cole Strange is an unknown. He hasn't played a lot of center, so we'll see. Alec Lindstrom, I have no idea if he had snap issues at Boston College, but it's early in camp. You had some heat and humidity, so a lot of different things can happen. I wouldn't go too nuts about that just yet. Brady Boy had a follow-up. Do you think Michael Onwenu's weight is going to be an issue when it comes to game performance? I haven't heard anything about Onwenu's weight since the beginning of OTAs. Vrabel was happy with all the weight check-ins at the beginning of this camp. He said that to the media, that everybody hit their weight goals. Onwenu hasn't taken any elongated breaks. I don't think he's taken many breaks at all during camp, aside from the regular rotations. He hasn't missed a practice. It seems like Big Mike is right on track, so I'm not too worried about it. And I think Onwenu will be good. I haven't heard one bad thing about Onwenu during this first week of camp, which is a very good thing. If you don't hear anything about Mike Onwenu, that's actually good because that means he's doing his job and that he's been solid, if not more than solid. So I think Onwenu is going to be good this year, if not really good, sticking at right guard, his natural position. I think he'll be fine. B. Rome's 23. The last three camps saw the offense struggling to get the basics down by this point. With reports that Maye and the wide receivers are finding success early, is it unreasonable to expect them to actually sniff 25 to 30 points per game? 25 to 30 is a little bit heavy for me. I do not anticipate this offense averaging 25 points a game. If they scored 25 to 30 points per game, that would make them a top 10 offense. And I'm just not ready to sit here and tell you that this Patriots offense is going to be in the top 10 by the end of the season. In 2024, Green Bay averaged 26.1 points per game, and they were 8th in the league, to give you an idea. So I don't see that much of a boost from last season. Last season, the Patriots, averaged 17 points a game. I don't think they go from 17 to 20, between 25 and 30. I don't see that much of a jump, but I do think they'll be much better this year. I do think they'll be much better in the red zone, which won't be too difficult because they were 30th in the NFL last year in red zone offense. I think that will improve. But I would, if you're asking me today, I'm more looking at like 22, 23 points a game for the Pats. I think they could get to 22 to 23 points per game. That would get them, about a touchdown above where they were last year, which is pretty significant. And if they're at 22, 23 points per game, that would put them, if you look at last year, that would put them at like 13th to 18th, which would put them around the middle of the pack, which feels right to me. I feel like this offense could be a middle of the pack offense. Anywhere from 12, 13 to, 18. Closer to 12, 13. But I wouldn't expect them to get to 25, 30 points per game. That might be asking a little bit much. Mr. Snoopy, why don't they sign Brennan Scherf? He's good. He was good. I don't know how good he is anymore. And thanks for the super chat, Mr. Snoopy. I don't know how good he is anymore. I don't even know if he's playing. Did he retire? I'm going to see if he retired. Well, he hasn't officially announced his retirement, but it feels like he could be on his way to being retired. He turns 34 in December. And look, nobody has signed him. Nobody's really been interested in him. And that should tell us. That should tell us an awful lot about Brandon Sheriff. I think the league looks at him and believes he's probably done. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. We got a guest coming up on Friday. You don't want to miss that. I don't think we're going to do a pod next Monday because I'll be traveling. But don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Appreciate every single one of you for spending the time today. And we will talk to you on Friday with that guest. Until then, be well.